If you have Zoom open, can you resend John the link? John Byrne.
Wait a minute. I thought you were talking, well.
If you have Zoom open, can you resend John the link?
Working on it.
Looks like we're now live on YouTube.
And apparently neither John Byrne nor Carolyn has signed on.
We've got a couple minutes.
Yep, so we do.
Molly, were you able to get John the link?
I resent it, yeah.
Thanks.
And did you get the co-host alert?
I was just looking for that and I didn't see it, but maybe it just happens. Oh, it just happens.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Have either of you, have any of you heard whether Mike Mon is going to appear in person or somebody is going to be in his stead?
That has not been communicated with me.
Okay. He was not at the road meeting yesterday. And I was told by he was ill. So, and Coleman was at the road meeting in his stead.
If this were North Korea, we could start, but
Why is that? Why North Korea?
because you'd be the emperor and we wouldn't need
Oh.
anybody else. But
Oh, I see.
we're a little different here.
Let's hope so.
Yes, thank you.
So I just saw, flash of Jay Torgerson. Hi, Carolyn. Welcome.
Yay.
I want to point out that before we start the official meeting, that Jay Torgerson has recently been promoted to battalion chief and has broad responsibilities for the whole east side of the Salt Lake Valley. This is not part of the official meeting, so Jay, can you just say a few words about that?
Sure, happy to. Thanks, Mayor. Just briefly, for the last 4 years, I've been working as the Division Chief of Emergency Medical Services for UFA. And I'm transitioning, so that's an administrative role. I'm transitioning back into an operational role as a battalion chief in our Battalion 11, which is the kind of the whole east side of the Salt Lake Valley. So the good news is for me is that it includes Little Cottonwood Canyon, and that will be one of my areas that I have responsibility for. So as a battalion chief, you have responsibility for several stations within a geographical area. I have 9 stations on the east side of the Salt Lake Valley. So 113 is one of those stations. So I'm happy to be able to continue with my role with you all in the canyon, as well as being more operational, hands-on, and being able to spend more time in the canyons, honestly. So I made my first drive into the canyon in 2 months. Unfortunately, it's been that long since I've been in there yesterday, and I'm amazed at how much snow there is. This will also allow a little bit better schedule for being able to get out on the snow. So I'm excited. So thank you very much.
Welcome home.
Thanks.
And congratulations. And I have to point out that, Jay went out of his way to keep representing us at these meetings between us and UFA, because otherwise they would have reassigned someone else. So this is extracurricular activity for BC Torgerson.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we now have a quorum of the town council, and two members of our council are unable to join today, Sheridan and Elise. So, but John, Carolyn, and I constitute a quorum. So, welcome to the town council, the Alta Town Council meeting of March 8th, 2003. We're holding this without an anchor location pursuant to my declaration of March 5th of earlier this month. And with that, I think we shall proceed with citizen input. So I believe we have several.
Mayor, do you want me to start with an announcement of the written comments received and whatnot?
Yes.
Okay, so we received 6 different comments from the following individuals: Rondir Jam, Pat Shea, Craig Highmark, Eddie Claridge, Kim and Paul Hooper, and Harris Sondak. All of these comments were received by the town staff and shared with the town council and with John Goldner, who was the subject matter of all of them. Very kind words were said on behalf of John, and so that's what all of these comments were about. I am going to read one comment where someone had asked, they couldn't be present, and asked me to read their comments. So this is from former Mayor Harris Sondak. It is unique to have had the opportunity to work with someone with the depth of knowledge and passion possessed by John Goldner. The town and I frequently benefited from John's ability to understand the most arcane information and nuance about surprisingly complicated issues. Many people in Alta's community, from homeowners to business managers to guests to elected officials, do not fully grasp the overlapping jurisdictions that affect the welfare of our community, but John clearly does. For many decades now, John dedicated himself to helping Alta and its community members thrive. John, Alta will not be the same without you. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. And for Harris and all the other written comments that I tried not to look at, I just want to say I'm really humbled by that. Like, I should turn my screen off because I'll be touched to tears. But on the other hand, I got to say, sitting in the office, talking on the phone, putting a tie on and going to court, doesn't always feel that friendly. So these comments really help. They even things out. So thank you.
Okay, are there other verbal comments to be made?
Yes, I know that Margaret Burke and Tom Pollard both requested to speak, and looks like Margaret is here, so she is up first. And then once she's done, I'll let Tom in.
Thank you. What is in a name? I had trouble writing or even speaking something today, so I first started with the name. H is for honorable. H is for honest. H is for humble. H is for humanistic. H is for hardworking. H is for helpful. H is for healthy. H is for happy. H is for hopeful. H is for heuristic or hands-on. H is harmonious relationships. H is for historic encyclopedia. H is for humane. H is for high-minded. H is for humanitarian. H is for highly regarded. H is for high quality. H is for humorous. H is for heart to heart. And H is for hortative. And I had to look up how to spell that. But basically, the idea is that John Goldner, even at birth, there were just too many positive attributes to assign a middle name. So you are John H. Goldner. I have personally observed and experienced you with these attributes. Alta has been blessed to have your preservationist presence. At the very beginning, before Roger and I owned property in Alta, we interacted with you and learned building code. I was encouraged to attend meetings affecting similarly situated properties and learned much. John, you steered us to the nation avalanche expert to identify locations for possible home sightings. There isn't a winter, including this one, when we have worried whether our home will stand. Your advice, counsel, and help continued for us and others in the decades since. Thank you, John. You will be missed.
I don't know what to say about that.
I don't know if I'm supposed to cut in now, but maybe I'll wait for, I know Pollard's on here, Mayor
Yeah.
Pollard. As Bill said, once a mayor, always a mayor, so there's no escape, Roger.
Tom, you're muted.
Or sleeping.
There
we go. Okay, there we go.
There we
I'm not
go.
very good. I'm not very good at this. I don't do this very often. So anyway, now everybody can hear me, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, I guess, hi, John, how are you?
Hi, Tom.
I guess I put together a little bit here. So, I just say, during my time in Alta and the time I was on the council and as mayor, there's been one constant, and that's been you, John. I think that the role you fulfill pretty much goes unnoticed by most, but, throughout your time, there's been many challenges and challengers, and you've handled them all with grace. Your passion for the preservation of Alta is unmatched, and there's no one who knows more about Alta than you. During my time as mayor, I can't thank you enough for your guidance and always being there as a friend. I was thinking back on everything, and one of the things I thought of was when we used to go to the UFA meetings in the morning. There was the 6 a.m. rendezvous most of the time in the dark, and we'd drive out there, and we'd always go by the insurance company, the little insurance company sign that had a picture of a Ferrari on it, and we'd always laugh. And then we'd go to the meeting, and then right after the meeting, we'd all rush over to Badass Coffee, because as silly as it was, at 7 a.m. meetings, there was never any coffee, and we all needed a little substance after that. So you've seen so many and worked with so many of the iconic politicians and civic leaders in the state of Utah and Salt Lake City. So I mean, what a great experience that's been. So from myself and the Alta community, I want to say thank you, and I wish you the best.
Well, thanks, Tom. And no, if there's nobody else, I'll just start babbling for a second.
Well,
Okay.
hang on. Let's make sure there is no one else. Are there any other members of the public who want to speak?
And if so, just raise your hand in Zoom and we'll enable your microphone and video.
And to raise your hand, there's a bottom panel on your screen. You might have to hover your mouse over it to get the option for raising your hand to show up if you don't see it.
I'm not seeing any
Hot
hands.
dog, we're done. John Byrne said it the other day. It's like, I like being the subject of attention about as much as he does.
That's true.
But I want to say thanks, Tom and Margaret and Roger and Carolyn and John. It really has. It's not been easy, but it's been a real honor to serve for this magic place for 40 years and all the wonderful people. And I really consider Alta my home, and everybody up there, well, almost everybody, part of the family. And I got to say, you know, we're not supposed to be proud, but now just thinking about it, and it's really weird thinking about it, but I'm proud of what I've done and what we've done and how we've kept Alta Alta. So keep that up. But now it seems time to get out of the way and pass the torch. And for everybody still here, you got to promise to, first of all, you're here because you understand why Alta is different than everywhere else and why it's special. Karen Travis, I saw you. I got in trouble years ago for getting something in the newspaper that said Alta was weird. That's a good thing. But, you know,
Yes.
it is different. And it's so easy to change it to just like every other cookie cutter subdivision. But please promise you'll fight like the devil to keep Alta Alta. That's it. You're it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And fortunately, this is not the last we'll see of you, because John has graciously accepted the to stay on part-time to finish out some of the things that he's been engaged with so these many years. And, you know, I could say that Alta would be a different place if it hadn't been for you. And that different place would be not as good as it is now.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Now, as the old Mayor Levitt would say, enough of this lovemaking. Let's get down to business.
All right. Well, the next thing on the agenda of getting down to business is Mike Mon and the report from the ski area.
It does not look like he has joined the meeting. I'll now resend him the link, but he's not here.
And no other ski people.
You know, it may be that he didn't come to the road meeting yesterday, and it may be he's just not available for this meeting either. So tell you what, let's move on to the consent agenda. And if after that Mike is available, we'll come back to him. So I'd like to see if there's first of all, I'd like to get a motion to approve the consent agenda on of the February meeting minutes and the February 23rd special meeting minutes and the staff and finance reports. So can I get a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Is there a second, Carolyn?
Happy to second that.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Carolyn, you're muted.
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Questions regarding the department reports and other items in the consent agenda? No questions. Hey, this is going to go quickly. Wait. Okay, so John, did you have some questions regarding that?
Nope.
Okay, all
Read
right.
the consent agenda closely and I had no questions.
Okay, in that case, let's move on to the mayor's report. And last month, I think my opening remarks had to do with the snow, the road closures, the interlodges. Well, we could just rerun that one because that is what has dominated our scene for essentially the whole winter. I am just really very impressed by how the players in this community are handling this, and particularly our marshals department, our dispatchers, UDOT, the Unified Police Department, UFA, and the ski lifts are their efforts to keep us safe and open and operational quietly. Well, a few booms now and then, of course, in the background it's just amazing. And I have the privilege of tuning into the radio network and hearing all this stuff go by. And it's just, it's remarkable. I mean, anybody who would watch this would say, how the hell do these people do it? So individually and collectively, we've done an extraordinary job this winter. And words really aren't enough to acknowledge them. So we need some form of public recognition once we've gotten by all this, which we hope eventually will. I don't know what form that will take, but as winter abates, we'll have to figure out to do something along those lines. My second point is we'll continue to address and make improvements with the parking situation. We sent in a letter of support to Mike Mon's proposal to them for swapping spots on the road between the Wildcat and between the Wildcat entrance and up to DPH. And that would be a safety benefit to us to have to eliminate that roadside parking and put an equal number of spots in the Wildcat lot. However, the parking at Snowbird is really a major factor in our ability to empty our lots at the end of the day, and that is a real problem. I mean, to take 2 hours to get to entry one is just nuts. And it's going to take a while to get that problem solved. So the third item is the struggle with the solution to the bus service. There is one glimmer of light that has come up in the last month, and that is towards the very end of the legislature. There was $150 million enacted to the Wasatch Front Regional Council exclusively for Little Cottonwood and Big Cottonwood canyons for bus service, transit facilities, bus shelters, and no further details. But we're looking forward to that being a real assistance in improving our public bus service next year. Not going to do us much good this year. Next item is there's a lot of good work on a new ordinance for the town manager and the chief of staff, and kudos especially to John Byrne and Cameron for their work on this. We have received 14 applicants for that position. There's an item on the agenda later today. We'll talk more about that. We're boiling those applicants down, and there's a pretty rigorous evaluation process that'll be underway. There was a council of mayors meeting on February 16th. Those meetings still continue to be dominated by the problems of homelessness in the greater community. We, Alta, are going to host a council of mayors meeting in July. It'll be outside, should be at the peak of the wildflowers. It'll be, I hope to be able to convince all the mayors in the region that this is a terrific place, and that, as John said, we want to keep Alta, because it could easily be changed into something less attractive. There was a capital projects committee meeting on February 23rd. We're planning for future projects and improvements to how, and we want the council to engage on that in the not too distant future, and particularly into the budget deliberations. Speaking of budget, we are, in my opinion, exhausting our staff, especially this winter with this huge snow, and we're going to need to add people, and the jobs are getting smaller, and are not getting smaller. The jobs are getting larger, and we're just burning out our staff. And the only solution to that I can tell is additions. The legislative session is over. There are several bills that could have adversely affected us on water and land use, but it appears we came out of the session pretty unscathed. Utah League of Cities and Towns, among other groups, will be providing a comprehensive overview of the sessions and how their effect on municipalities. There will be one main session in the mid-year conference, which Chris and I are signed up to go to next month. And fortunately, we have a pretty alert lobbyist by the name of Shelley Thresher, who keeps us advised on these things and is a watchdog when we need a watchdog, and an attack dog when we need an attack dog. And that's just what we want. So our next meeting is April 12th at 2 p.m. There may be a work session before then. And I must say, particularly for Carolyn's benefit, that we may have to have a single purpose but short town council meeting prior to that. So with that, I would like to go. Molly, did Mike Munn join us in that interlude? All right. So let's go to Resolution 2023-R-2, reappointing planning commission members whose terms are expiring at the end of this month. We tend to have long-term planning commission members here, and so their familiarity and experience with Alta is great. 3 of them are expiring all at once, and we would like to stagger future expiration dates so that doesn't happen. And so what I would like to do is nominate John Nebstead for a 4-year term, Jeff Niemeyer for a 5-year term, and Rob Boy for a 2-year term. And so this will require the concurrence of the council, and let me open that to discussion.
Let me see.
John or Carolyn?
Yep.
Roger, do we get to see bios for these folks, or were they available
Oh.
someplace and I missed them? were they just nominations that you nominated, sir? Where do they normally come from?
These are all members of the Planning Commission now, Carolyn, and they have been for many years.
Okay.
And so I made the mistake of assuming that everybody would be familiar with them because of their longevity. And I accept that as a goof on my part. And so I don't know that we can pop up bios on them right now.
That's okay. I can research that at another time, sir. But if the explanation is that you're just trying to change so that people don't all retire at the same time or pop off the same time, I think I welcome that suggestion. Support that suggestion.
Well, it has to be more than that, Carolyn, because their terms expire. Well, I suppose their terms could be, we could let their terms expire and then defer the appointments till next month if you want to do that. I mean, it would leave a hole in the, what's the right term? Membership for a short time, but this is not something that requires constant a lack of a little discontinuity in the membership would, I don't think, be too severe. But let me know what you think, Carolyn. What do you want to vote on these people sight unseen, or do you want to wait till you've had some more exposure to their qualifications?
I'm going to say I'm clearly underprepared to answer this question, and I did not see that as something that was there. So I do not feel that I am in a position to answer in good faith. I'm sorry.
Okay, John Byrne, you want to say something about this?
Yeah, only that, it's a little confusing on the website that we have these terms labeled as expiring in 22. And then we have Dave Abram expiring in 23. But it's really March 1 of the following year. Is that right, John?
Well, and the ordinance got changed so that we would avoid the conflict in the case that a member of the Planning Commission gets elected to mayor, and then there's a strange overlap. But yeah, that's essentially true. And in the past, first going backwards quickly, I would recommend and had recommended, and the Planning Commission would like to keep the membership the same because they're clicking. And we have representation based on disciplines. And the three that are up now, Nepstad is a planner with part of a local firm. Dave Abraham, Abraham's not there. Rob Voy is the business person. He started the Albion Day Lodge, Albion Grill, and still skis Alta continuously. And Jeff Niemeyer used to be the director of public utilities and knows all about water and environment, and he's our environmental representative. And so those three, I think, would be perfect to just continue on. We've changed the dates of their appointment, which we can do, because over the years, we'd have, like Lee Kapolowski was on for 42 years. And then when he finally quit, he quit in the middle of a term, and we would just appoint someone to fill out his term or appoint someone to do a 5-year term. And somehow, where we originally started with an annual stagger for each of the 5 members, it ended up that 3 expired on 1 year and 2 expired on the other year. So we're just trying to get back to that someone's term expires every year. And Dave was re-upped about 2 years ago, so I can't remember that looking, but so now it would be every member, one member's term expires every single year if you do this.
So the website's just a little out of date on the dates is what you're saying, because it's showing Abram expiring this year too.
Yeah, I'd like some clarification on that.
And I'm not looking at the
And
website, but
John,
I will
agree
look
with
at
you.
it.
I'm looking at
Yeah,
the
I mean,
website now. It looks like we did not update the expiration dates for Nepstad, Niemeyer, and Voy. And I'm not sure what the actual date is of Abraham.
And then Maren just entered the mix, which I think is great. So I don't think we need to address her necessarily directly, but it appeared, I think the other three either have expired or are expiring. And I also think Dave probably expired.
Dave got reappointed like 2 years ago. And we
Oh.
did.
Well, we definitely want to
earlier
keep Dave
appointment
on
just
there, right? I think Dave really brings a lot to that. We really want to.
Boy,
keep
you're
Dave
telling
on
me,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He does a
He
good
is the
job.
epitome of the Alta architectural representative.
Yep.
You're not going to find somebody that knows more about Alta that's an architect than Dave.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
so-
that was my only comment or question is I think we should deal with Dave too, since it appears that his term is expiring. If it's already been renewed, then great. But if it hasn't, let's deal with Dave as well.
Yeah.
I'll check. I don't think we have to deal with him. I think he's got 2 more years, but I'll check for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're delinquent on keeping that element of the website up to date. So we'll take an action item to get that fixed. Cameron, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the members of the planning commission will continue to serve until a replacement is appointed. And so to put it off till next month won't leave a vacancy. We can just continue on, clarify the details and fix it next month.
Got it.
There's not, sort of in response to Carolyn's comment, there's not much. I'm not finding like a little paragraph about these guys' backgrounds or anything like that. There's not a lot of background on the website. I don't think there's a lot of background for us either, but it's a little hard to think. You almost have to Google the people individually to figure out their background.
Right. And you just pointed at a big hole in something that we haven't been doing. So sorry, and we'll fix that.
These guys have all been doing a great job, I think. And I think the last year, I think the meetings have been really a lot more productive and a lot more useful.
Well, the most recent one had to do with the putting the racks on private land on Baldy, and it went just fine.
And it'd be great if we could avoid that stuff. Like if they could just put those things all on Forest Service or state land, we wouldn't have to deal with it. But we had to deal with it and give them variances. And it's great because the county guy had called me like a week before Mike Mon submitted or Grom the plans for variance requests for these racks. And the county guy goes, "What do? We don't know what to do with this stuff." I go, "Well, I don't know. We never have to deal with it." And then we did. And he goes, "Can you send me what you did?" So they're doing the same thing.
Interesting. Okay, Carolyn, you're about to say something on this, I believe, on this topic.
Yeah, I don't want to derail anything. So John Goldner mentioned that, I don't want to be any rate limiting step here. You mentioned something about, John, that they would, like, if we don't vote for this, that like a thing is blank for a day. Did I misunderstand you or?
No, well, they stay on until they're reappointed or until they're replaced.
Okay.
Under the new ordinance, so
no issues if I just keep quiet for a little bit here, sir.
correct.
Great.
All right, so I believe that we have our informal resolution is that we will make these appointments at the next town council meeting in August. Is that where we are? I think that's where
April.
we are. Okay, we'll do that.
Right.
All right.
It's not August though. It's April.
April, one of those A months. Yeah.
Just check and make sure we hadn't changed the schedule.
Right.
But we could now that you're bringing it up.
Excuse me. All right. Next has to do with a kind of a cleanup item, which is discussion and possible action on ordinance 2023-0-1 to amend the dog license ordinance to remove the watershed tag requirement. And let's see who wants to speak to this.
Molly, I'm happy to.
Molly?
You'd like to.
Yeah.
I can give a quick background. So historically, all dogs that have been licensed in the town of Alta have received an annual town of Alta dog license tag and a one-time Salt Lake County watershed tag. And the Salt Lake County is just no longer issuing those tags. They've kind of moved on to a different system. So we have run out. So we don't have any new ones to issue to either any new dog licenses that are awarded or to anyone who might lose one. So we just want to kind of remove that language from our dog ordinance.
I would call this a housekeeping item. Is there any discussion concerning this particular ordinance? Okay, in that case, I move that we adopt ordinance 2023-0-1, amending the dog license ordinance to remove the watershed tag requirement. Any discussion?
Second.
Second. Yeah, I got a second.
Second.
Discussion? None, seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Dog, that passes. All right. All right, discussion and possible action on resolution 2023-R-3, repealing and replacing dog license class numbers. Molly, are you gonna?
Yeah. Another brief summary. So we just finished at the end of last month, kind of the annual renewals for all the dog tags. And there was 2 that were forfeited. One was a class A, one was a class B. And we're just kind of recommending that we open those 2 back into a drawing. So the total number will remain the same as it was last year.
Okay. Discussion of this.
Each class is going to also remain the same.
Yeah.
Because I think that's fine. There's only 2 licenses this year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there has been some attempt to move more of these licenses into the class A category. Is that right, John? Over time?
Yeah, that's right. And especially in the situation where I've noticed the council when like the class C, which are the commuter license dogs, those have typically been the ones that we've reallocated to either an A or a B most recently.
Cool.
And so I think there's always just on a yearly basis looking at roughly how many are in each class. So, but
That's a great answer, and I think the way you've proposed to allocate it here makes good sense, and I understand it's not a situation where there's been a C license surrendered.
Okay. Carolyn, you want to?
And the C licenses will stay in place until something happens to the dog or the commuter, or is there talk about moving those into A licenses? Or
well, you couldn't move them because those people probably wouldn't qualify for an A license. There are people that live down in the
right. But to John Burns's point about increasing the number of class A licenses, because there's a finite number of dog licenses, period.
Correct.
And the town decided how they're going to distribute the number of dog licenses. So you could theoretically, and I would never want to take someone's dog license away. So, the class C, I guess I'm asking if a class C dog dies, could that class C license be moved into class A? And I think the answer is the town council would have to get together and decide if that was something that they wanted to do, changing dog class licenses. Is that correct?
Not quite. So the person would actually have to forfeit the license. So for any class of animal,
Right.
the dog
Okay.
passes, you have 6 months, and then you can replace the animal and maintain your license. So the only way that we bring a class C before you to possibly reallocate to a different class is when it's been forfeited.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And I would add to that, that as that's been happening over the last few years, we have in fact reallocated those licenses into the A category from the C category.
That is correct.
And I think
So,
probably broad support for that.
so there's a slow migration from C to A. Is that,
Or B.
or B? Yeah, okay. Got it. Okay, so we're discussing possible action repealing and replacing the dog license last numbers.
Hold on, we don't have a motion and a second to adopt 2023 R3 yet.
Okay,
I'll move that we adopt 2023 R3.
I'll second.
okay. So let's have a further discussion of it. Is there any further discussion?
I think because we're not changing any of the categories here, nor the limit, I'm comfortable voting in favor of this ordinance.
Okay. And Carolyn?
Yes.
Okay.
Same.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Motion passed, resolution passes. All right, the next one has to do with updating the fee and schedule for removing the watershed tags. Is that do I have an obsolete agenda where this is repeated? I think so. What's your number 10? Jen?
I think it's
2023 R4.
Oh, it is. Okay. So let's have a description of this.
So this kind of relates back to item number 8. So we've removed the watershed language from the ordinance. Now we just want to remove it as well from the fee schedule, so it doesn't show up as a fee there.
Ah, okay. More house cleaning.
I move we accept this.
I
ordinance.
second.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes.
Thank you all.
All right, so the next one is less perfunctory, you might say. It's discussion and possible action on ordinance 2023, creating the position of town manager and delegating administrative provisions. Let me give some introduction to this. Our town really needs, in my impression, a person who can be effectively the chief of staff for our town government. I think that is unrealistic to expect that a part-time mayor, or at least this part-time mayor, can function in that purpose, in that way, and very effectively. I believe it will be a benefit to this incumbent and all future incumbents if we have a person who is the staff chief for the town. And to clarify what that person would do, I would like to share my screen and give a rather crude, if you want, org chart. This is how I see that functioning. Let me get this. Let me start over. Come on, Roger, get it together here.
It's showing on my screen.
Me too.
Okay, all right. What I show here is a hand-drawn chart showing, come on, get rid of that stuff too.
We can only see the org chart. We don't see the rest
You
of
know,
your
you
screen.
see, you only see the org chart, good.
Yeah.
All right. So here's an org chart showing a mayor, a town council who's, I'm not sure exactly how to draw the town council relationship to mayor, so I showed it as kind of a co-equal. And under the mayor is the town manager, which is a position which I propose we create. And under the town manager is everyone else, with the exception of the marshal. And the marshal would report to the mayor. The everyone else would be under the town manager, and the town manager would figure out how to organize everyone else. So this is the concept which I am proposing we adopt. Now, I have to note that that Cameron and I did not communicate very well on this concept, and so there's been kind of some turmoil here in how this would be turned into legalese. I'm not a legalese person. I'm a person who draws pictures with crayons, as you just saw. So that has resulted in, I might say, a lot of noise in the system, but that's where I'm trying to go. And I would like to open a discussion on that. And that was the intent of the ordinance 2023-0-2 that would create that position and delegate some administrative positions, provisions to that. So I open it to discussion.
I just got one a few minutes ago that's now referring to this as 09. Is that correct,
Oh.
Karen? The ordinance, the one you recently sent me, Roger, is now calling this 23-0-9.
That's an old version, John. No,
Oh, so 202 is the current?
yes, because the numbers restart at the beginning of the year, and that was, I kind of set Cameron up when I initially numbered them, and then we corrected it on the agenda and stuff, but 09 is not correct.
Okay, so just to double check that, I'm looking for the first. This one has a few red line changes in the exhibit, including under 115-2, paragraph B has been deleted. Paragraph C has been deleted. Is that the right version, Cameron? I think
Yes.
you're on the right track. You know, I like, if this is the right version, I think exhibit 1 is getting closer here. Obviously, you know, we're still trying to, I haven't even read the rest of exhibit 1. I've only just read for the red line or for your marked changes. So I think we're getting closer. I'm comfortable with the basic ordinance changing the name, because I think we're all in agreement. We're going to target going to a town manager rather than a town administrator. So if it helps you and helps the hiring process, to go ahead and pass the basically the ordinance, the name change ordinance, but I don't feel comfortable passing exhibit 1 because we haven't even read it yet.
Okay.
You know what I mean? What do you think, Cameron? Is it okay to pass the ordinance without having the exhibit done?
So I'm trying to think of how we could segregate it. Everything except 1-15-2, which is the delegation of authority from the mayor to the town manager. Everything except that red line addition, we could pass today because we have a quorum of council members. We can't delegate the duties to the mayor unless we have the mayor and a majority of the council, not the majority of the council present. So we would actually need 3 council members plus the mayor in order to pass 1-15-2.
I don't think that's the question that John asked. Is it?
And maybe I misunderstood. I'm sorry if I did.
I think he's answering it by pointing out another thing that we hadn't considered, Roger. And that is that we don't have enough people here to meet the voting test because it's not a question of a majority of council members present. It's a question of, it has to be a majority of all of the council is the way the state statute's written. So I think that's just sort of saying that, again, well, we're not ready to pass Exhibit 1 anyway. We can't pass Exhibit 1 is what I think I heard Cameron just say. Can we pass the ordinance without the exhibit attached? Or do we need the same majority to do that? And so we can't do that today either.
You could pass the enacting ordinance, the 1-6-4.
1-6-4. Now, the one that came with the draft I'm just reading, and I promise you I'm not trying to be difficult.
No, John, I'll interrupt. So I did not catch that when Cameron sent me stuff earlier today, that it had a -09 at the title of the actual printout. You are looking at the most current version that both Roger and Cameron have put together.
Yeah, it's just mislabeled at the top.
It's just mislabeled, but that it has not been shared with the rest of the council.
Okay.
Okay,
That
well, I
was-
was about to say that I think I could vote for this ordinance 09. But if it hasn't been shared by the rest of the council, I think we're violating our own meeting rules that we enacted 6 months ago, where we said we wouldn't take up matters that we hadn't even seen yet. We wouldn't vote for resolutions that we hadn't read or that hadn't been written.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
the only way around that would be if you wanted to acknowledge all of the edits in the document that Roger and Cameron made, which may or may not be, I'm not as familiar with the edits that they made, but you guys do have a version and you could walk through the changes that Cameron and Roger made that you've seen, and you could potentially do it that way. Right, Cameron?
Yeah, so you can, as long as we have published a draft.
Yeah.
During the meeting, we can make edits to this. But I also do think it makes more sense to be a little bit deliberate on this because it's a big change. There's some big organizational changes. And I would be more comfortable if the council everyone had a chance to look at it. And we would need 4 council members present. So we could take action on everything except a portion of Exhibit A, but it doesn't really make sense to me to do that because everything else is dependent on that section that we would not be passing. So
that's a really good point because, just this week, some of the ones that circulated, honestly, my planned comment was going to be, well, if we're going to do it this way, we don't need to change the name because we're creating a new town administrator. So it's still a little bit of a dynamic there as to where that's going to end up. Certainly to use town manager with some of the things that we circulated this week would not have been appropriate. And I know you can make it say anything you want, but we wouldn't want to adopt a name that was intentionally misleading or led people to be misled. Right?
Yep, it's always good to be deliberate and thoughtful and put what we want. And so,
yeah,
really when the original draft went out, the misunderstanding I think was mine. I didn't understand necessarily what the council had as a consensus on what was drafted, and so I drafted sort of the middle of the road that would allow us to make adjustments in the meeting. But it's not going to harm anything to put this off till next month, and it'll give everyone a chance to look at it. if there's any concerns about either the draft that was sent out or the concept that the mayor proposed today, it would be helpful to know that if there's some comments or discussion, because then we could make some changes and be ready for next month.
Yeah, I think debating this at the actual meeting is pretty challenging, and that doing it in writing makes sense. You know, Roger and I had a talk this morning about it and his work chart, and honestly, I think we're really on the same page. And now it's a question of, I think that you and I should make the document reflective of what Roger wants, what the staff wants, and get the document right, so that everybody else can just read the document. If they're comfortable with it, vote in favor of it. It's
For sure.
too complex. It's too complex to have everybody involved in every one of these tiny changes. It takes a certain amount of work just to get up to speed on this, to be able to actually discuss it. And you and
Okay.
I and Jen are obviously up to speed, and Roger is too. So,
All right.
does it
Since I-
negatively impact the hiring process to punt, Cameron?
No, and that's a good question. I actually just thought of that last night. So currently the hiring and interviewing process is taking place under the mayor's authority, and that's not going to be different now or under the future ordinance. So that hiring process can continue. You know, obviously the applicants probably would like to understand the concept of what the job would entail, but I think we have that with the job description because everything matches up with that. And then at whatever point that the ordinance does pass, that authority from the mayor would transfer to the town manager, and it wouldn't change anything for the hiring.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just
So-
trying to think, is there any circumstance in which it would change, with that hiring authority would change? And if it did, does that really create a problem? Or
The town can't change the appointing authority of a town manager because it's state law governs that area. And so there isn't going to be any change of the authority of the hiring, because that is appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council. And that's not going to change with the ordinance regardless.
but what might change is the other officers might change.
Well, so currently the mayor has the executive authority over all employees and all appointed officials. And under the contemplated ordinance, the town manager would have authority over all employees and appointed officials except for the marshal, because there's a statute that requires that he report to the mayor or the body that appoints him. And so that's really the difference would be in the authority of the town manager. We're not changing the mayor's authority or the council's advice and consent to hire the manager.
To hire the manager, but then some of us at least think that we should then give the manager the authority to hire the other officers rather than there's some debate about who gets to hire the other people, ex the marshal.
Yes.
And we have this argument that, gee, it probably makes sense to have the town manager be that person, because then it's his team. He should, we're asking him to run the town day to day. These are the people that are running the town. Why would the hiring authority be other than with the manager? But I think there's also some debate about this too. So
yes, and that's a question, clearly for the council to discuss and decide. I don't think that we can delegate the authority of the town manager for appointed officials, although for some, I think there is some provision for that. I at least haven't understood that that's what the council's proposing. I understood that the council was keeping the appointing authority with the mayor for the marshal, town manager, clerk, and treasurer.
I think my understanding was that the mayor's request was because if you just delegate the authorities the way that lots of towns have done it and take the list of mayor, then other than for the manager and the marshal, that authority to do the administrative function would go to the manager. And so I think there was a little disconnect between you, Roger, and I on this. I know Roger, it feels it's important that the mayor retain the ability to appoint the manager subject to council consent. I think I can live with that. That does, but I think we ought to think about whether it also makes sense to extend that beyond the manager, or whether we should empower the manager to hire the people that he's going to work with. He or she is going to work with.
Well, I would say that we should empower the manager to hire the people with whom he's going to work. But in my experience, hiring usually requires not only the immediate supervisor, but that person's boss too, to concur. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. And so that the town manager would hire somebody at the next level, and that I would concur in that.
In addition to the council concurring.
No, I don't want I don't think it's, the councils definitely would have to concur in the hiring of the town manager, but not, I wouldn't want the council to have, I wouldn't want it to be necessary for the council to concur in somebody at a position that's lower than that.
Yeah, we should think about that. I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate the directness with which you're saying it. It's great to have clarity. I think those are issues that we ought to think about and not try to rush something through today. There is this idea that the council is supposed to be, as an ordinary course of business in some places annually, reaffirming the officers of the town.
Yeah.
Right, Cameron, remember we did that last spring, sort of for the first time ever. So
Yes.
you've already got a situation where the council, I believe, is supposed to be reaffirming the officers of the town anyway each year. So I think that's already happening. But this is too detailed a thing for us to try to hash today, I think, unless you want to.
So let me give an example. We hired Chris, actually, a Mac, who's our building maintenance person. And whose principal duty right now is shoveling snow, I think. But it would be, to me, improper is not the right word, but certainly inappropriate to have the town council's concurrence on hiring that level person.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Okay.
Couldn't agree with you more.
So how far down the management chain should the town council's concurrence be required? The officers, fine. Is there anybody below that?
No. I think just the officers, because then that also lines up with the statute about the council is supposed to reaffirm their approval for the people.
Okay.
And so I think you're talking about the officers.
And the officers
Other than the marshal.
okay. So the officers are the clerk, the marshal, and the town manager, correct?
Treasurer.
Treasurer. Ah, yes.
And and any other office we were to create,
Mhm.
right? And the town attorney, I believe, is part of this as well. Because that's what Cameron, do you have opinion on that?
So I guess it depends. An appointed official are the four specified in statute: the marshal, the manager, if we choose, the clerk, and the treasurer. And so I don't think we can change the process of who appoints that. We can certainly change the level of the appointment. We can delegate the mayor's appointment with advice and consent of the council to a town manager, I think. And that's, I think, what some municipalities have done to get around. If you create an additional job that is of that appointed level, then yes, you could require that appointment be by the mayor or town manager with the advice and consent of the council, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a,
Go ahead, Roger.
that's not a bridge that's in front of us now. So can we just be silent on that until such a bridge appears?
Yeah, I think it's probably that way by default, that it's
Okay.
all officers of the town. I think this point alone says we shouldn't try to pass this today, and that we should explore this more fully. Cameron, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, up until probably yesterday, I wasn't sure, what the consensus was. And part of that is just, my way of looking at things in the statute versus sort of the practical world of the council members and what they're trying to do. So yes, it would be helpful, because even just on this issue of appointment, I'm not sure exactly where the rest of the council falls, and we need, 4 of them at least to have a consensus on this issue to pass it.
Yeah, this is so important. Trying to take action with not even a simple majority of the, or with only a simple majority of the council, not the mayor and a majority. We don't want to do that. This is important. We should try to, let's try to get it right so we're all feeling good about it, and then try to get everybody to support it so it passes unanimously would be, I think, the
Right. Definitely, I would want it to pass unanimously. So is, my approach to this is pretty simplistic, and it's represented in the hand-drawn org chart I showed. And if there's any problem, objection, comment on that, I'd like to hear it. And otherwise, let's defer action on the ordinance till the next round and proceed with hiring somebody. Mike wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Well, just seems the conversation could use a little humor. So I want to vehemently object to the spelling of the word Marshall on the.
Did I? Objection noted.
No, it's such a complex subject. It's easy to feel like we're getting sideways, but actually I think Roger said it just right 2 minutes ago, where the mayor would appoint the manager, and that would be subject to the council approval. And then the manager would get to appoint the other officers, and that also would be subject to council approval. And then beneath that, the manager just would be empowered to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I like the discussion so far as well. John, that was a nice summary.
Good.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Hey, progress. Let's go to item 12, discussion possible action to authorize an interlocal cooperative agreement with the Salt Lake County for municipal election. Jen, you want to speak to this?
Sure. So this is kind of just a standard contract with Salt Lake County. We have 2 seats on the town council, 2 4-year seats that are up in January 2024. And so this would be an election for those 2 seats. I guess I'll point out that we would need at least 5 candidates to run in order to facilitate a primary. I guess maybe I'll acknowledge that in prior part of this contract also does state that if we wanted to do ranked choice voting, we would need to make that decision here soon. In prior conversations, the Alta Town Council has never wanted to go in that direction. So I really didn't spend a lot of time on that. If you council members would like more information on that, I can certainly go into it, but I didn't think it was worthwhile at this point for me to go in that direction. Is that
I think most
Fair.
people that adopted ranked choice voting in the last 5 years have come to realize that they don't want ranked choice voting. Nobody understands it. They're getting lower participation rates. I know here in Alaska, it just affected a really important election, and they are running away from ranked choice voting as fast as they can. So it made a lot of sense intellectually in some ivory tower, but the reality of it didn't make any sense.
So this is just a standard contract, and the reason that I'm coming to you with this contract now is because we haven't passed a fiscal year 24 budget that would include a line item for this. So we want to make sure the council is aware of this expense being put on the books. And we're basically going to be at the minimum of this. So it's going to cost us $2,500 probably, no matter how this shakes out. I don't see it costing us more, but it will not cost less either.
So Jen, this thing is already in the budget, so it's not a budget
No,
issue.
it's not in the budget.
Oh, it's not in the budget.
Correct. That's why
I'm
I'm
sorry.
bringing it to the council now. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So,
It will be part of my proposed fiscal year 24 budget.
right. Now, does this require a resolution, or what kind of action to authorize it do we need?
Just a vote to, and Cameron, help me out here if I'm misstating this, but a vote to authorize me and you to engage in this contract with the county.
Okay. Well, is it appropriate for me to move that we engage in this contract?
Yes, please.
So I move that we engage with the Salt Lake County for an interlocal cooperative agreement for the municipal election.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right. Next is a bigger issue, which is discussion and possible action regarding the future of the town shuttle program. And I think Chris is prepared to talk about that.
Indeed, I am. Thanks, Mayor. You all received a little staff report write-up from me about what we're hoping to hear the council discuss today. I'll just sort of talk through some of the key points of that and then open it up for your discussion. I think we're all familiar with the status of the so-called shuttle program. This winter, there were 3 distinct shuttle service programs offered, or there are, 3 programs being offered presently. We've got the traditional resort shuttle. We've got the new town shuttle, which was put together kind of at the last minute before ski season to fill the gap created by cuts to UTA ski bus service. Then we have the night shuttle, which is operating in its 2nd year, and that is sort of an on-call service that can pick you up and drop you off in Alta or Snowbird. These programs, they've been really popular. We heard from Tom Schneider last month about ridership numbers. Almost 12,000 riders were carried in January alone, and that's actually about half of the total ridership, more than half the total ridership that we saw last winter on the programs that were being offered last winter. Alta Chalets, or really Dan Kettner and Adrian Ritterman, have been operating the shuttle program in one form or another since about 2010. They do it as a service to the community. They don't, retain any of the contributions they collect. And they have indicated they don't want to manage the program anymore, and they're hoping that somebody can take it over. If no one steps forward, there's a chance that it could just go away. We have been discussing sort of internally, staff and the mayor in weekly staff meetings, whether it's feasible or desirable for the town to be the entity that takes on the program. There is some precedent, for the town offering a service like this. We did fund and manage the Albion Basin Summer Shuttle for many years. And then there are examples in ski area communities and other communities of the local government funding in one way or another and offering some kind of free around transportation service. And a couple of examples locally of where the local government's doing that are Park City and Bryan Head. I think there are three primary components of what managing a program would look like. One would be funding or fundraising. Another would be selecting a vendor and managing a contract. And then the next would be designing a service program. And the long story short is that we do think it's feasible for the town to take on this burden. We assume we would probably more or less start from scratch with a service program and a budget. So I don't want to dwell on whether we can raise, the money that it's been taking to offer the program in the past. We don't know what UTA's ski bus service plan will look like as of now. So we don't know, what kind of mobility gap we would be shooting to fill. And I guess I'd also point out that in the past, the program has really run itself. The burden that Dan and Adrian faced was primarily in fundraising. But once the funds were raised, they were, provided to Alta Shuttle, and then the program kind of ran all winter without intervention. And there'd be a wrap-up meeting at the end of the winter, and it would get put down until the following season. Before we dig into this any further and evaluate the feasibility of the town offering the program, I think the staff would like to understand from the council whether you're comfortable with us doing so, or maybe whether you support just the idea of the town taking over and operating a shuttle program, at least for next year. Perhaps leaving the question of funding and the service program itself aside for now. So with that, I'd open it up to discussion, questions, or anything else.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
When you say operate the system, just to try to get it through my head here, that could mean hiring the contractor, including the contractor that we've used all these years. And so you're managing that contract. You're not actually, we wouldn't actually be like hiring the bus drivers and so on and so forth, maintaining the vehicles or something like that.
That's correct, John. And I've been trying to think of another way. I shouldn't say operating system, and I've been cognizant of that because there hasn't even been a contract in the past. I've actually seen a contract from 2010 that never got signed. I'm pretty sure we would need one, but certainly if it was the existing vendor, in all likelihood, managing a contract wouldn't entail all that much. We might want to ask whomever provides it, to give us monthly reports on ridership. We're not directly receiving those now, but I'm sure we could get them if we wanted to write that in. And who knows? There could be other pitfalls that we would have to step in and correct. But I
also think there could be liability issues that I think we'd want a contract, if nothing else, to protect us from potential slip and falls and operating liabilities of the contractor. So I think we'd want to be indemnified by the contractor for their operation of the vehicles, things like that.
That's a great point.
If that's what we're talking about, I think that this could be the answer. I know some people think maybe it should fall under the ACVB world. to do some of the lifting with respect to the fundraising. I kind of like that idea, subject to, knowing what the ACVB people think about it. I think that's a little better idea than the town going knocking on doors looking for the money, like the town directly. Entering into contract for the operation of the shuttle, that seems within our bailiwick to me. Roger, what do you think?
Well, what I think is that this shuttle service has been a really big help to our community. And however we go about it, we need to keep it going. It solves so many problems, among them parking and traffic and really safety, because people sometimes imbibe when they go out to dinner, and it's better to have somebody else drive them home. And that's what this thing, among other things, does. It brings business to our community. People get picked up at the Cliff Lodge and get delivered to one of our restaurant facilities and back. There is going the other way too, but that's okay. To me, if this went away, we'd really feel it. And so I think we ought to take whatever steps we can to make sure it continues. Craig wanted to say something.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, some of the stuff was a little murky, so I just wanted to clarify a few points. First, there seemed to be an ask for some funds for the rest of this budget year, this year, for them to continue the service. I didn't hear you address those, Chris. So hang on, just wait one sec, because I have like 3 questions. The second one is, I understand and actually agree with Roger's comments about the importance of this service. And I do think we should try to find a way to do this. But I think embedded in this stuff was that the potential vendor wanted to spend $150,000 or something like that on a capital expense and needed approval by April this year, or couldn't even do it for next year. That one looked a little problematic to me. And the third one is that, if we're going to do this, which again, like Roger, I actually hope we can find a way to do this. We're going to have to go through, our normal stuff for a contract like this, which would mean dual sourcing, even though I don't think there is another source available, or at least a reasonable one, but we're going to have to go through some mechanics of that process. So I can repeat those, Chris, if it was too much, but just if you could sort of address those points.
I got them. I wrote them down. So, no, I am not conveying a request for additional funds for this year. That Dan and Adrian are sort of on the hunt for contributions that were offered but not confirmed. And if they can secure those, they'll be fine. So that's not what I was. But I did not come with any sort of request for additional funding for this year. I'm forever going to confuse Dan Kettner and Tom Schneider's names, but Tom, who owns and operates Alta Shuttle, was saying last month that if he's going to offer the service next year, he needs to get a new van. The vehicles that he uses for the service aren't the ideal vehicles for the rest of his business. And given supply chain and other factors, he thinks that he'd like to know if he needs to buy another vehicle. I think he said in April. Last year, that's what he said. I think he bought the vehicle in June, but I think it was, he also had to go to Ohio to get it, and then, take it somewhere to get it retrofitted. And there are other vendors. There are there are other vendors, and actually at the beginning of this year, partially as a result of ACVB making a much larger making a $25,000 contribution to the program. Dan Kettner did get bids. They were not super formal bids written up in a document, but he got essentially hourly rates proposals from 2 other vendors, and they were more or less the same as what Alta Shuttle was asking. And I know that beyond those 2 other vendors, there's also the company that's offering this, the Cobham Connect service. There's a new, a new sort of another kind of Big Cottonwood and Little Cottonwood UTA service supplemental program that's being offered by yet another vendor. So I know there are other vendors, including our existing vendor. So we do feel like there's some urgency to indicate to Alta Shuttle whether there's a chance the program's going to take place next winter, and we'll just have to see how far we can get. And I will say there's a chance that we might determine it's not feasible for the town to be the entity that raises enough funds to offer the program. And I think that's a possibility. So, but we have a couple stones to turn over in the riverbed, I think, before we know that.
Yeah, I think Roger raised this at the beginning, which is I think with the 150 million that was just passed by the state, that there is a reasonable possibility that we can grab some of those funds. That said, I am reasonably skeptical that trying to get a commitment on that in short order is going to be difficult. So that's why I was raising the capital expense part of this. I'm sure we can get our act together and figure out, everything that needs to be done, by the summer. Whether we can do it in the next month or 2, I don't know, Chris.
Yeah. We don't know, but again, we haven't discussed the town council. I would prefer to understand from the town council whether the town council supports the idea of this becoming a town program. Feasibility of it, whether we can raise the funds aside.
Well, let's have a motion. Let's see if it passes.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? I apologize. Carolyn had to join us via phone, and I'm trying to work with her because I think she has some input on this.
Good.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, there
Jen.
you are.
Sorry,
Okay,
I figured
great.
it out a little bit. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, number one, I am in support of the town taking this over. It seems to me that it was previously a profitable endeavor, and so it seems to me like it could continue to perhaps be such for the town. And that was my question, Chris, in your analysis. Is that what you're thinking, or not really?
No, I mean, I'm thinking it would continue to be a free service. I mean, the only entity that may have been profiting off it was Alta Shuttle, but I mean, what I understand is that Tom was essentially not, budgeting for the depreciation of his vehicles for a long time. I don't think that Alta Shuttle was making much money on this program. But so I haven't thought of it as a revenue generating opportunity for the town.
Which is totally fine. It doesn't change my support.
Okay.
It doesn't change it.
And furthermore, in principle, would we want this to be a revenue generating element, a profit center for our town? I mean, I look at it as a public service, which ought to not lose or make money.
I think it's hard to get it to be exactly 0, though.
Of course, you never get it exactly 0, but but we should strive is too hard a term. We should attempt to make it about zero.
So John, I heard you suggest that we just get a sense of the town council right now, and that's fine. I would point out, though, that what you pointed out last time, which is the total cost is in the neighborhood of 10% of our budget. We're facing some potential significant increases around salaries, because you all know about the salary project and the new town manager coming on. And I'm sort of feeling that unless we put this in the context of next year's budget with, you know, with that full picture, that it's going to be hard to get a, you know, much more than just an indicative, we think this is good service, particularly when I do think there is a very reasonable probability that we can get some of that 150 million and not have to fund the whole thing. But there are just so many variables right now. I'm not sure much more than the sentiment, which I think Carolyn expressed about this is, and Roger expressed, this is a valuable service. If we can figure a way to do it, we should. But then do we do usage taxes, blah, blah, blah. There's just a fair bit of complexity here that hasn't been resolved yet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was thinking we could just have a pretty generalized sign of support, which I think is what Chris is asking for. But I agree, there's a lot of unknowns, including, you know, I'd be a struggle for me to see us spend 10% of our budget on this, you know, if we were unsuccessful in raising additional funds. So, I mean, I think we all feel like it's a good thing. I heard Roger speak to it. I heard Carolyn speak to it. Maybe we don't need a resolution. You also seem supportive of Craig. I mean, I think the shuttle program is great. I use it from time to time, and man, when you want to ride, it's a great thing. So. Is that enough sentiment, Chris, or do you want something more formal, or what works for you, Chris Colley?
I'm fine with it. I'm glad to hear the mayor, you know, speak in support of it. You know, I'll just reiterate that, you know, I don't assume we're going to come up with $220,000 or $200,000 out of the town of Alta general fund. I think we probably want to assume we're starting smaller, and that we're not solely funding even a basic program.
Yeah, frankly, I had not recognized what Craig pointed out, that 150 million is a pretty big pot, and bus is one of their few cited items. If we could get a small dip into that pot, it would be a big step for us. So that's great. I think if I could sum up, try to make a summary here, that we are in favor of continuing the shuttle as a community service, and that we haven't solved the financial end of it, but we are going to work on doing that.
Yeah, it seems like it to me.
Okay.
Jen, if we were doing what Chris is proposing, would we consider doing it as a enterprise fund?
You're asking me that question?
Yep.
I hadn't thought about that approach.
As opposed to it becoming a department.
There's pros and cons that we'll have to discuss on that for sure.
Yeah, okay. I mean, enterprise funds are supported by the users or the ratepayer, or it sort of enjoyed the water system is used by ratepayers. So could contributions be paid into an enterprise for the fund for the shuttle, and it then be used by the general public?
Yeah, I mean, I think the benefit would be to segregate it and segregate the liabilities of it so that it doesn't become another general obligation of our general fund. And I think this just tried to be sensitive to what Craig was saying.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're going to want to sort of isolate the economics of this and not just sort of fold it into the normal income statement.
It's interesting. It's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we've got a sense here that we like the shuttle and it deserves some, and it needs some further thought on how we're going to finance it. All right, so let's turn to new business, which any of the three council members have any new business to bring forth? None for John.
Exciting times in Alta.
Keep shoveling.
We're sure gonna miss John Goldner. I'm glad to hear he's
Oh, boy.
around for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'll be in our hearts and minds for many years to come.
Indeed.
I hope so, and as will you all.
Carolyn, any end of meeting thoughts from you? Still
She
muted.
may have,
She-
oh. She may have been disconnected, even though her computer screen is still showing.
Okay, anybody else on here want to say anything?
Motion
And-
motion to adjourn?
No, I want to give one last parting thought here. And that is that I want to make sure that let's see, does that whole thing show? Yes, there we go. That we are responsive to inputs on a real-time basis. And Marshall is now spelled properly. And with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
I think it's just you and I, buddy.
Okay, all right.
You have the quorum, you have to stay in the meeting till someone.
I declare this meeting over.
Yeah. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, good night.
Becomes moot anyway.
Thank you, John Goldner.
There's only two.
I was gonna ask what, Cameron, how I deal with that
Yeah,
situation.
so if Carolyn didn't vote, then we don't have a quorum and the meeting would need to end anyway. But they're not taking any action, so it's kind of a 6 or a half dozen operation on that. So I think we're fine. It'd probably worth a phone call to Carolyn to verify.
Yeah,
Anything else, but other than that, I think we're good.
But we're not stranded in this meeting for indefinitely.
No, so for example, if a member is remote and gets disconnected and their disconnection doesn't leave a quorum, then the meeting has to end anyway because you can't hold a meeting without a quorum.
right.
Right, got it. Okay,
The practical effect is the same, but
we're done.
wait, I see Carolyn.
I just saw some action on her behalf,
Oh.
actually, yeah.
She's got
I'm here. Sorry. Anyway.
How
Are
do
you,
you-
are you
how do
also
you-
voting to adjourn?
How do you vote, Carolyn, on adjourning? Yes or no?
Oh, I needed to. Yes.
All right, good.
That
Motion
makes my record
passes.
keeping all the easier, thank you.
Okay. Good. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
And if you want to just
Hey,
put stuff
bye-bye.
in minutes to explain that, the disconnection and that'll be good.